Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempests rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and O thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God.
Good evening. Whoops. Let's see. Let me. Good evening. Hello, Shay. Hello, Skylar. Hello, Teresa. Hello, Levi.
Hi,
How are you?
I made it.
You made it.
I did.
That shows a bunch of self-control.
Either that or I'm a glutton for punishment.
Gotta do that.
Of course, it could be self-discipline too.
Yeah.
Or it could just be that I couldn't actually sleep even though I took that cyclo. And it made me sleepy.
Uh,
I still need my Bible. I don't know what happened to it. Hello to everyone.
Marines with, Scholars with, and
Sister T's with, or Shay's with.
Sister T. Yep.
Can't believe you forgot Sister T.
I would have got there. Seeing all the pictures. If StreamYard didn't give you
We won't say anything about not reading books, just looking at the pictures.
If StreamYard didn't give me profile pictures, it would take me like twice as long. My brain instantly knows, hey, that's Teresa because of the picture. Yes, I see your name, but pictures register faster for me. All right, well, reckon we get started?
I reckon.
All right. Galatians.
Even though I'm not Ralph.
That's terrible. We are in Galatians 5 again. And we've been studying the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit comes right after this section in verses 16 and 18, 16 through 18, where Paul describes the internal struggle of the flesh and the spirit. The spirit wars against the flesh, and the flesh against the spirit. And then in 19 through 21, he lists the works of the flesh, and then he lists the singular fruit of the spirit. And it's this fruit with all sorts of dimensions. We're in 22 now. It's love, and it's joy, and it's peace, and it's patience, and it's kindness, and it's goodness, and it's gentleness, and finally it's light, it's self-control. And so we've been talking about how the Spirit produces these in our lives and how we are to practically live that out. So we come to self-control, and so that brings us up to speed. Would you like to take her away?
It's interesting how each of these seems to build on one another. Each of these facets are interconnected in so many different ways. Joy, love is connected to joy. Our joy is, without love, there really is no deep-seated joy. There isn't that calm delight in something. Yet that same joy is what brings about peace, which is connected as well to love, because without love, there is no peace. As we talked about, how perfect love casts out all fear, which means it brings what? It brings peace. And, we can look at long suffering and how our calm delight is what in something, in God, in his promises, is what allows us to be patient and with other people in situations that would cause us to tear our hair out. And yet it's peace that causes us to, endure that struggle and endure that persecution or that situation. And yet it's love that helps us to do that. And yet it's joy, and we can, every single one of these is connected in a way, in such a way to each other and builds on each other. And temperance is no different, or self-control. It's no different. We talked about, you talked about meekness or gentleness, which they're not the same. And I'm sure you brought that up last week. I didn't make it last week. My apologies due to my headache. But meekness is strength under control. Gentleness, there is that aspect of it. We choose to be gentle. We choose to keep our strength under control in all situations. And that plays into our self-control. Because as we allow the Spirit to have its work in us, to produce its fruit in us, and fruit that grows and is nourished by our time spent in the Word, in the Spirit's Word. Self-control grows, allowing us to keep our strength under control, to take love or to be love or choose love for one another, for all mankind, not just for those who love us, but for all mankind. Self-control is built upon the joy, the calm delight that we have in this world, in the things of the Spirit, in our love for our fellow man. Temperance, or self-control is very vital to a Christian. It's vital to a Christian's psyche, its mentality, his walk with Christ. Because it is through self-control that we win the battle with Christ. I mean, that we, with the aid of Christ, win the battle against the flesh. In every case. But without the strength that comes through love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, self-control wouldn't be there.
Right.
If it wasn't for love, well, we wouldn't have any self-control. There would be no point to it. We would be just out there fulfilling all of our willful desires, whatever we wanted to do, whether it be adultery or fornication, or uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, whatever those works of the flesh are, whatsoever we wanted. And if we turn over to 1 Peter chapter 4, and beginning in verse 1, since therefore Christ suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of God. Brethren, this describes self-control. If we are suffering in the flesh with the mindset of Christ, we have ceased from sin. Because Christ exemplified every single one of those aspects of the fruit of the Spirit. He exemplified love in the very mission that he came down to earth for. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish but have everlasting life. John 3:16. He exhibited joy. I came not to do the will of man, but the will of my Father which is in heaven. John something or other. I can't remember the exact passage for that one. It was said so many different times in so many different ways throughout the book of John that you really can't. I mean, to pick one passage, I think I'm thinking of John 12. I think, but anyway, he exemplified that peace. Especially when he said, do you not think that I could call 10,000 or 10 legions of angels? But then would my mission be, I'm going to paraphrase it, but then would my mission be pointless. I am ready to die. He had made peace. He was ready to be offered.
Yep.
He was at peace. He exemplified gentleness. He exemplified goodness and faithfulness and all those fruits. And when we have that same mind in us, we've suffered and we suffer in the flesh, we have ceased from sin. And we then can live the rest of our time in the flesh, not to fulfill human passions, but to fulfill the will of God. That has become our motivation, and that has become our self-control. Verse 3. For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatries. This is what we used to do in times past. This is what a picture of a lack of self-control is. Doing what they want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, lawless idolatry, running after, the next best thing, keeping up with the Joneses, having a better orgy or a better party than what the Browns did last week. Verse 4, wherein with respect to this, they are surprised when you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery. And therefore they malign you, but they will give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. verse 5 as well. So that's a picture of a lack of self-control, and a picture of self-control because you are no longer running to that. You are no longer fulfilling those passions, those desires, whatever soever you want. We hear it often today, in slogans like Nike's "Just Do It," or the adage, "Well, life is short. Do whatever pleases you. Live life to the hilt." And that's not the way we think, because that's what the world wants. That's what the world views. That's what we left behind. A life that was full of passion, but was empty, pointless. There is no fulfillment in that life. Instead, we turn to one wherein there is accounting. We are accountable for what we do. Just as it says here, they may think it strange that you do not run to the same excess, and they might malign you, but they're going to give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. Well, we are accountable. And so we are to live with the mindset of Christ in our life, in our head, in our way of doing. That's a good point a good way to look at it there, O'Shea.
Yes,
Life may be short, but eternity is long, so you better prepare for it. Turning back a chapter, in chapter 3 of 1 Peter, verse 8. We're going to run from 8 through 12. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless, for to this you were called, that you may obtain blessing. Pause there for a moment. If I am giving in to the sinful desire of responding in like manner as what somebody has done to me, is that demonstrating self-control? Or is that demonstrating debauchery?
Debauchery.
It's definitely not self-control, because I'm doing the exact same thing they are. For whoever desires to love life and see good days, verse 10, tech person 10. Thank you. Let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Which is easier, to holler and to cuss, or to speak plainly and kindly in a very stressful situation?
Well, it's easier to holler and cuss and shit out the mouth.
So which one takes more control?
Speaking kindly.
Which one are we called to do? Well, we're called to practice self-control.
Yep.
That is, to keep our tongue from evil and our lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. This is all about self-control. Verse 12, please. Why? Why is self-control so important? Because the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous. His ears are open to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. And his ear, by implication, is closed to their prayer. Self-control is important. In fact, it was so important that God spoke of it to Cain in Genesis chapter 4. God commanded it in Genesis chapter 4. And verse 6 and 7. To set the stage, of course, Cain here is very upset with the fact that his brother Abel's sacrifice is accepted and his is not. And Cain is so upset, he was very angry, and his countenance was fallen. I mean, he was just, you could read it in every line of his body. Verse 5, Alicia.
Oh, sorry. 5.
Now verse 6. You see there, he was very angry. His face fell. You can kind of see him pouting. He was so angry, the frown was just permanently fixed on his face. Angry face. CJ, angry face. Your angry face is hilarious.
Anyways.
So the Lord says to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why are you making angry faces? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin crouches at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but control yourself. You must rule over it." That's how important it was. Sin lies at the door for every single one of us, and it's waiting to pounce and to snag us, gobble us up. It is up to us to control our impulses, to control our desires, and not let sin have dominion. That's self-control. So the fruit of the Spirit, then, with love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and self-control. Each one is a faucet that is touching each other and builds upon each other, and it strengthens our self-control to the point of where, even though we have days like Paul, wherein our flesh is struggling really hard, we are still able, even in our stumbling, to recognize, okay, I lost control there, but God help me. And together, we regain control. It is, as John said in 1 John chapter 1, verse, no, I'm not going to go to 7. CJ was headed right there for it. Where am I going, CJ? Not to verse 7.
Make your point again.
Why do I have to repeat myself?
So I can know where you're going, so I can guess it. I got a...
Yeah, but now I've got to remember what my...
10% chance. 1 out of 10.
Self-control is when, even though in our days of stumbling, and when the flesh may struggle so hard that it actually wins, with God's help, we are able to regain control and to continue on. As it is just like John said in 1 John chapter 1, not verse 7, but verse 9. Well, Amy, if you're doing tech, would you please take us over to 1 John chapter 1? If you're not doing tech, whoever is doing tech, please take us over to 1 John 1 and don't let Amy distract you. Verse 9, please. Yes, dear, we saw your comment. Hi, everybody, from Amy. Why you don't just stand in the doorway of the living room and say, hi, everybody, we don't know. Sorry, you've already commented. Bye-bye. See ya. Adios. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sin. How do we regain control?
Confess sin.
By confessing our sin. Folks, if we don't confess that we sinned, there's no forgiveness. If I am guilty of looking upon a woman in a lustful manner, I need to confess that to God to be forgiven of that, do I not? If I am guilty of gossiping about my brother or my sister or my neighbor, I need to confess that to God in order to receive forgiveness. And then I need to exercise self-control. Just as much in either case, whether as a man who's looking upon in a lustful manner upon a woman, or as a man or woman who's looking and gossiping about their brother, sister, or neighbor.
Yep.
Or one who has perhaps let their temper get the best of them and uttered words that ought not be ever uttered. Or someone who has, and there's a whole category that might fit anything that one of us might be doing at any given time. I'm not going to single out every single sin. The Bible does a good job of giving you the categories and letting you pick.
Yeah.
We need to, once we have confessed our sin and received forgiveness of it, then we need to exercise self-control. We have to discipline ourselves to maintain that control. Find ways to stop ourselves from looking in a lustful way out upon a woman. Find ways to stop desiring to go out and to dance lasciviously in public. Find ways to go out to control our temper. Find ways to stop gossiping. Stop dividing the church or desiring positions of preeminence that we really don't want, we really don't need. And the list goes on and on. We always use 1 John 1, and because of verse 7, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Christ his son cleanses us from all sin. However, we do that to the detriment of the rest of the chapter, because there is so much more truth. There is so much more meat in the rest of the chapter. It's a complete steak and dinner. Steak and potatoes with gravy on top. We need to recognize that there's more to it than that. But self-control plays a very big and important part in it.
That's right.
And we have to, and the biggest thing about self-control is learning to develop tactics of control for our unique situation. What may work in my position or my situation, well, it may very well not work in yours. And so we've got to look and say, okay, well, the Lord gave us these tools. How can I use them? How will they benefit me to the best extent so that I can continue my walk with Him? Jesus could have, at any moment, called down enough force to wipe out the entire earth just for one little insult that he received. Yet he exercised meekness and self-control throughout all of his walk on earth.
We brought we brought that out when we talked about meekness last week as one of our two examples. We talked about Jesus. He was very strong. He could have called 10,000 angels. And then we talked about Moses when he was derided by Miriam and Aaron. Why are you the only one that talks to God? We should all get that relationship. He didn't flaunt himself as he didn't flaunt that he was the one and only spokesman, but he was meek. He was humble and let God do it. He had the strength to say, yeah, see, you need to listen to me. But he kept it under control.
Well, for example, the times, maybe you have this on at hand. If not, you can find it. The time when he was casting out demons, and they said he's from Beelzebub. He does this by the power of Beelzebub. Well, he could have. How dare you accuse me to be of Satan? I'm from God the Father.
Turn into a pig.
He could have called angels right then.
Yeah.
He could have destroyed them right then and there.
12.
Yet, huh?
Mark 12.
Thank you. Mark 12. And yet, what did he do? He reasoned with them. He was self-controlled and didn't let anger have a part. You and I would have instantly gone up in flames, the flames of anger, perhaps righteously so. But we would have been so upset and so mad that we would have gone, we would have started throwing insults and have done way more harm. But he stood there in control and reasoned with him. If I, by the power of Beelzebub, cast out demons, well, then who do your sons cast out demons by?
Mm-hmm.
A house divided against itself cannot stand. That's self-control.
Yep.
In John chapter 8, for example, when they tell him, we know that you have a devil. After he's talking about he's talking about them having them being being of their father the devil. He's talking about you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. He makes the statement in 34, whoever committeth sin is a servant of sin. In John 8:34. And he makes the point as well in 37. I know that you are Abraham's seed, but you seek to kill me because my word hath no place in you. They're like, Abraham's our father, verse 39. Well, he says, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Now, he just got done saying that you are the seed of Abraham. In other words, you are Abraham's descendants, but Abraham's not your father.
Yep.
And they're like, well, we weren't born of fornication. We have one father, even God. You see, they're getting the point. But they accuse him of having a devil and of being a Samaritan. Oof, what a slap in the face for a Jew.
Yep.
Samaritan, one of those half-breed Jews.
Not even human in the eyes of the Jew.
And instead of calling down people, calling down the armies of God, what's he do? He chastises them, continues to talk with them, not necessarily winning them over, but the people that are around him are hearing his message and they're understanding his message. Not only that, they are seeing him put his control in action. And that is making a bigger impression.
That's right.
So what is it then when we let the fruit of the Spirit, when we let the Spirit have its way and produce its fruit in us, we develop self-control. As we go through these trials and temptations and persecutions, maybe we're going through a persecution at work. Love you too, Sister T. You have a good night. Maybe we're going through a persecution at work. Maybe we're going through a persecution by our friends or our family, or perhaps even by our church family. It might seem as if we're being persecuted. What is that doing to us? It's either going to build us into a better Christian, or we're letting it tear us down.
Yep.
On the one hand, we will develop more and more self-control. On the other hand, we lose all self-control.
Yeah.
And we fall away.
Can I bring up a few passages?
Yep, I'm going to let you go ahead, and I've spoken enough for now.
All right. Paul gives us an example of self-control in 1 Corinthians 9 of that of a runner. 1 Corinthians 9.
You sure it's not 2 Corinthians 9?
No, it's first. I'm looking at it right now. It's first.
Okay.
1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 9. First off, I guess this whole chapter is good to look at it. And Paul's self-control. Paul has been talking about in chapter 8 that chapter 8, eating meat sacrificed to idols, you may have knowledge, but surrender that knowledge for the sake of your brother. And he's going to talk about that in 10. Chapter 9 is kind of in the middle of discussion about meat sacrificed to idols, give up your liberty in chapter 8. And then he says in chapter 9, I'm not just telling you to have self control, I'm having self control with you now. Am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus, Jesus our Lord? Are you not my workmanship in the Lord? Well, the answer to that is yes. Uh, and he is skipping down to verse 4 for the second time. Verse 3, this is my defense to those who will examine me. Do we not have the right to eat and drink? Well, yeah, I have the right to eat and drink. Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife as to the other apostles, the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? Well, yeah, I have that right. I have a right to eat whatever I want. I have a right to take a wife. And I also have a right to ask you for payment. Uh, verse 6. Or rather, don't we have the right to work for a living? And the implication is I have a right to ask you for support, but it's not good for you, so we refrain from it. Right? I am exercising self-control in all of these areas. I have the right to be married. I have the right to, what does he say? Eat and drink whatever I want. I have the right to receive payment from you. And so I'm exercising self-control. I have liberties. You're saying, well, I have liberty to eat whatever I want. Okay, if we're talking about what I have the right to, what I could lord over you, here's the list. I could get payment. I could take a believing wife. I have self-control in these things. And then at the end of the chapter, he gives us an example, an illustration of self-control. 924. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but one receives the prize? So run that you may be able to obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, verse 26. But now verse 27. But I discipline my body and keep it under control, verse 27, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Just like you, Paul says, I have to keep myself under control. We have to discipline ourselves. In the context of 1 Corinthians, that might look like refraining from taking certain liberties that you have for a brother, like Paul did to the Corinthians. In a broader context, it might look diff- it might look like not indulging in the sin that I really like. It's like my right hand that Jesus asked me to cut off, or my left foot. Uh, that's a funny inside connection, but that's probably why you're smoking. But but
Watch
but
out for that eye.
we exercise self control in a multitude of ways. And in his list, oh, I was gonna mention another passage. While I think about it, is there anything you want to add here?
Oh, I've done spoken a lot. It's your turn.
So, so First Corinthians 9. Oh, I wanted to mention that self-control is mentioned uh, for elders. One of the qualifications in 2 Timothy 3 that
I've got a phone call. I'll be right back, guys.
okay. One of the qualifications for elders in 2 Timothy 3 is that they be self-controlled in all things. 2 Timothy 3 and First Timothy 3. First Timothy 3 and verse 2, an overseer must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled. And so that's one of the qualifications of an elder. You have to be self-controlled. Now, it's interesting to me that among the list of, it's interesting to me that the Christian, the elder, everybody needs self-control. It's a universal thing. And a lot of the things that are listed for overseers are also listed uh, for elders, deacons. And so these are things that we should already be working on uh, in our day-to-day lives. We talked about some broad things related to self-control. Let's dial it in. I want to talk about maybe two things that the scriptures talk about that we need to be self-controlled in. Ephesians 5 and verse 18. Ephesians 5 and verse 18. Ephesians 5:18. And do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit. We're told here in this text that we are to be not drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. For some people, wine is addicting. It takes self-control to be able to say no. The second area, and I'll have a lot more to say about this area quickly because we're about out of time here. James chapter 3. In our speech, James calls us to bridle the tongue. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. But we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble, verse 2, he is a perfect man, able to bridle his own body. If we put into the mouths of horses, uh, if we put oh boy. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that
You said, "Whoa, boy."
No. James 3:3.
Sorry. Couldn't resist. I'll shut up now. Go ahead.
James 3:3. Who's on tech in there?
Probably nobody, it looks like, because she's not doing what she's supposed to be. So she may get kicked off of there.
We're still in James. We're trying to scroll. Thank you. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also, though they are so large and driven by strong winds. They are girded by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs.
Object lesson.
So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things and is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is on fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, set on fire.
Alicia! Stop being shenanigans. Stop worrying about my shenanigans and start scrolling. Keep up with CJ.
But for every kind of beast and bird of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a deadly evil full a restless evil full of deadly poison. And so we in one of the areas we talked about alcohol in Ephesians 5:18 and in speech. We need to control our tongues. Well, you say, CJ, it says right there the tongue is untamable. So why are you telling me to control my tongue? Well, James chapter 1 and verse 27, it tells us that we need to bridle our tongue. That's pure and undefiled religion before God. So how do we reconcile the fact that the tongue is untamable, but we're supposed to tame it? It's part of pure and undefiled religion. And I think the answer lies in the next section. It's not only what we speak, but the wisdom that we use, the wisdom from above and the wisdom from below. It's the Spirit. It's the Father who gives us all perfect gifts, James 1:17, that will help us exercise wisdom and self-control in the matter of our speech. And I'll kind of just shut up now. Got anything on that, Levi?
Those are all good examples of how we can develop or the need for self-control in certain areas, especially the tongue. Like Dad was saying in his lesson this Sunday, if you didn't get a chance to check it out, or didn't get a chance to listen to it, check it out. The tongue is slippery when wet.
Yeah.
I'll let that one pause in. And so we need to really work, and it's one of the most prolific, easily recognizable areas that we need to practice self-control.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good because we pretty much have said everything that needs to be said at the moment about self-control.
Well, whenever you pause, I'm like, is that a pause for me to come in, or is that a breath? Well, that's pretty much it on self-control. I've enjoyed the study. We are technically done going through the produce of the Spirit, but if memory serves me correctly, next week we want to tie some things together and wrap it all up in a bow and then ship it off to you in your home and title it Fruit of the Spirit. So
Something like that.
we want to give you a package next week and tie all these things together. And so we look forward to wrapping up this study next week.
Yes, that it is. And just in time for you to head out for your hiatus of 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's a slight hiatus. I'll still be live. I think once a day. There is one day I'll be live twice a day. That's Tuesday.
Still doing your evening reading for us? No, I'm doing that, aren't I?
I thought you said you wanted me to see if I can try and still do it.
Yeah, and if you can't, then that's fine.
Okay. Well, at least once a day. And then I'm not leaving y'all hanging. There'll be plenty of pre-recorded stuff like morning meditations will be still airing. I got those pulpit times. Every other week there'll be a new episode in Philippians, and then the rest of the time we'll be revisiting old videos. So I'll still be cranking out some stuff in the time I'm there, but it will definitely be slowed. Well, thank you all for being here. And remember, here at CEM, we want to do three things. We want to glorify God, we want to edify you, His saints, and we want to answer any spiritual questions you may have. Thank you all.
That's the way, whether we wake tomorrow to serve God here on this earth, or we wake tomorrow to serve Him up there where we all long to be, you know where CJ and I will be. Well, we'll have the privilege, honor, and pleasure of being, for we'll see you then. God bless in your walk with Him. We love y'all. Good night.
Alicia, that's a wrap. And cut.